Hey buddy, it's Peter and this is the 2025 Indian Scout Bobber. This is the limited trim with a tech package, and this thing is probably beyond some of your expectations if you haven't been spending time looking at big cruisers, kind of like me. I'm not a huge big cruiser guy myself, but on this channel I've committed to reviewing as many 2025 motorcycles as I can, and as I've been learning about this, it has really impressed me. There is a huge difference between a premium brand like Indian and some of the other cruisers that we've covered on this, although I will say pricing is not one of the things that keeps this thing out of reach of a lot of people. This is more premium than some of the cruisers that you might think compete with it, but when you start looking into the details, you get a lot for the money, even in this premium brand, and boy can you accessorize these things up. So I'm filming here at Rally Motoplex, which they give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So anything I want to film, they will let me film. And I'll be honest, there's going to be some things that I probably leave out on these Indians because I'm just starting to get to know them. But if you want an expert advice, expert to deal with these, the guy that sold me my bike is their lead Indian salesperson here. He is awesome and he will go over stuff, and of course this whole team is really good here. They'll really go over everything with you. And when you buy a bike like this from the dealer, you can really look into the accessories. There's 100+ accessories for this thing just from Indian itself. You can throw those in on your deal. So that's one of the cool things with Indian. You don't have to go aftermarket. You can make it pretty cool and pretty custom right out of the showroom door. So we're going to go over this bike bit by bit, detail by detail, and if you have questions, things you want to know, or things you think I need to point out in the next video, by all means, please let me know, and I will continue to film these again and again. I may have to come back to this if I don't film everything you want, but I think I've got a few unique things to show you. So let's get going with this review. So usually at this part of the video, I talk about the class that this bike is in, and I tend to generalize a lot of these bikes as cruisers. Now I know there's sort of subcategories within that category, but to be very honest, if you're looking at a bike like this, you know what you're looking for, you know the style that you're looking for, and it's less about the name of the class and more about the style. This of course is the Bobber. This thing's pretty cool in style. You can kind of see that sort of sloped down version. This is the lowest seat height in its class, so if you're someone who's looking for a big bike but don't want something too intimidating, this is going to give you that option to have that lower seat height there and give you something that is approachable. Now there is the Scout 60 Bobber. That's the 60 cubic inch, which is 999cc. This is the 1250cc, so this is the larger option, and like I said, it's got the tech package and the limited, so there's a number of different options here, including the dash, which we're going to show you in a second. So let's start with the front wheel and we'll work our way through. So if you've seen my videos before, you know I like to say, if you take a look at the front wheel, you can tell the manufacturer's intent for a motorcycle. And that is mostly true. It can vary a little bit with something like a premium cruiser because you're going for style here. So instead of doing upside down forks and top end stuff and, you know, like a fancy like overdone brakes, that kind of thing that you would see on a sport bike or a touring bike or some of those things, here you're looking at style. So you do have the steel rim here, no spokes on this one. It is a 130 by 90 by 16 tire. Now it says 130, which is the width, but I can tell you just the styling. Perspective is something that cruiser stylists play with, and the perspective you have from the rider's position to the front wheel is that the front wheel is really, really wide. 130 is only about a centimeter wider than a typical sport bike, but this thing looks absolutely massive. And it's a Pirelli tire here, but again, it's got some tread on there that looks a little different. I don't know if you can see that. Let's just see. Yeah, you can sort of see that there. But basically what you have is a single disc. It's got ABS there. It's on the far side. It is a large disc, so it's going to give you the braking power you need. A lot of sidewall to this tire, and just a massive looking tire for the front. Now it's interesting because this has a 16-inch diameter rim in the front and a 16-inch diameter rim in the back. Sometimes they play with perspectives that way as well by having smaller tires in the rear, but despite the sloping sort of body style, the low rear seat, you still have a 16-inch tire in the front and a 16-inch tire in the back. Taking a look at the heart of this bike, this is a liquid-cooled bike, but it still has that classic V-twin, almost that air-cooled look, kind of smoothed over without the air fins. Now, there is the 60, like we mentioned. The 60 would be mentioned here. This is a 999. It usually says 60, but this is a 1250cc, so that's 999cc versus 1250cc. The 999cc is 85 horsepower, 65 foot-pounds of torque. This one's 105 horsepower and 82 foot-pounds of torque. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, those are big numbers, and they are, but you gotta keep in mind with a cruiser, it's never about peak horsepower. On a race bike, you wanna make sure that when you're at the top of the revs, you've got the most horsepower. That's what you're gonna use on the racetrack. On a cruiser, you're using torque, and you want to have a big, broad torque band. So this thing's going to feel extremely powerful, even though it only has 105 horsepower, which is absolutely astounding. I mean, you look at a Kawasaki Vulcan 900, this is a 1250 to be fair, but it's got 50 horsepower. You got 105 horsepower here, you got lots of power, lots of torque, and a broad torque curve, which is what you want to have that true feel. This is all about the experience and the style. It's not about numbers. So again, they show you large displacement numbers, which is kind of, you know, a fun thing to have, but it's also not about peak power, it's about overall power. Now, what I like about this is it gives you that classic V-twin look. You can see the styling in here. A lot of styling details on this bike, which are sort of hard to point out on video. You'll see them as you walk in person. But you also have that liquid cooling. So you've got that fully modern engine with that more controlled temperature, and you can sort of, it can be a little bit more precise with that. So I personally like liquid cooling. I know a lot of you cruiser guys are gonna like air cooled as well. You know, that's totally fine. Whatever you want, Indian has both for you. But in this model, this liquid-cooled engine still gives you that look and that feel, that classic V-twin rumble, that lots of torque. Really cool engine here, both in looks and in performance. So the one thing Indian advertises is the lowest in class seat height. And of course, a low seat height is definitely going to give you the ability to make a bike feel lighter. Now this is listed at 542 pounds. I can't remember if that's wet weight or dry weight, but it does not feel like a 500-pound bike. Even for a big cruiser, which tend to be not really well weight centralized as far as, like, you know, forward and low, just simply because of the style of the engine. It's not like a inline twin that you can lay down and make a little bit lower. But even despite the lack of that engineering to make it a low weight, it definitely doesn't feel intimidating in any way. I'm about 6 feet tall. Just for perspective, it's a 25.6-inch seat height. Usually when you get to a taller bike, the seat width matters. This isn't a huge seat. It fits me just fine. I'm sure you can customize the seats here. I'm sure you can customize all kinds of things on here. But this is my seating position. Now remember, if this seating position doesn't work for you, there's a lot of customization in a lot of these bikes. You can kind of make it work for you. But certainly from an intimidation factor, this thing is not intimidating at all. This thing feels very comfortable. For me, it has a little bit more of a reach forward than I'm used to on a cruiser. I like to have my feet in more of the mid controls. It's got a little bit more forward controls, but again, depending on your size, depending on who you are, depending on how you want to set this up, you can really set this up for yourself. But it's certainly not intimidating. Even if you were much shorter than me, if you had you know, less experience and you wanted to ride this thing, you're going to be fine on it. Keeping in mind, this one in particular is quite powerful. It's not a bike I would recommend to someone with no experience for sure, but it's definitely not intimidating. Some of that forward lean is helpful because it is a naked bike here, but again, you can accessorize these bikes up any way you want. So let's take a look at some of the controls. Actually, we'll show you just a quick look at the seat here, and then we'll take a look at some of the controls as well. So instead of zooming right into the seat, I kind of want to give you this angle here. So we'll talk about the seat in just a second here, but to get that low seat height, these shocks are laid down a lot more than they would be on some of the other bikes. It is a belt drive bike, so no chain maintenance there, which is really nice. My very first motorcycle was belt drive, and boy, did I appreciate that after I went to chains after that. So again, belt drive just going to be really reliable, no maintenance, or virtually no maintenance, and just a nice thing to have there. The seat here, again, a lot of style in here too, and it's you know, a good cushion to it, so it's nice and comfortable. Again, there are bigger cruiser seats on other bikes here, so it's not massive, but it definitely kind of gives that almost kind of sporty feel. It's not huge and in the way. It's not like massive sofa, but it is very comfortable. One thing I will point out is there is a, when we look at the gas tank there, the fuel fill is on the top side there, not dead in the center, and of course that's because the bike is on its side stand. That's the top of the tank, that's where you want it. I do want to show you this dash. Now there is an analog dash available on a lower trim level, but this is the tech package, and this thing's pretty cool. Let's take a look at it. First thing I want to point out is this is a keyless bike. So again, normally you'd stick your keys down in this area underneath the tank. That is where there is a push button that's an on-off button, which we will turn to the on position. I'm not going to fully start the bike up because we are inside, but I'm going to tap that push button there. It's not really a push button. It's almost like you don't really push it in. And then you have this dash here, which is pretty great. You can see the really clear display there. Again, anything you're seeing on camera, it doesn't film as well as it looks in person. Any kind of display like this, I assume this is a TFT type display, it doesn't look fantastic on camera, but it does look good in person. So you can start cycling through different things here as we wait for it to come to life a little bit here. There we go. have to hit OK. So again, this is Polaris based, right? Polaris owns Indian now, so you'll see some Polaris familiar things. You've got a compass built in there, which is really nice to have. Sometimes it's just, instead of having a full GPS, just knowing which way you're headed. Oh, we are heading south back to the river or whatever else it is that you're sort of use as your reference point. That's always visible. Big speedometer front and center, gear indicator, color display, and the colors do show nicely here. Red line's 9,000 RPM, pretty high for a cruiser. And again, but you can cycle through a lot of things. It is a full touchscreen, so you've got gauges. You can show the bike itself, various things there. You can see tire pressure monitoring available. Outside is 22, battery, engine temperature, that kind of thing. Fuel efficiency. Don't pay attention to any fuel efficiency on a bike that's sitting in a showroom here. But you've got the temperature gauges there. We'll go back to here. We're going to look at our ride information, current ride, tracking, all that kind of stuff. What's nice about this is you do have the ability to have a map built into the screen. So a lot of manufacturers are trying to get navigation into their dash, so you don't have to put an ugly phone sitting next to a classic looking bike. The difference is most of them are using the brains of your phone in order to give you navigation here, but this is giving you a full map display built into the head unit here, and it still gives you speedometer and your gear indicator up top there. So there's a lot of different things you can go. You can go back to the gauges there. You can interact with your phone if you want to. You can pair to it. You can add a speaker to this, so it can give you the turn-by-turn navigation and that kind of thing through a speaker, or you can just have it Bluetooth to your headset. So a lot of cool features here. Some still that I have to learn. There's more to show you on this dash, but boy, is this simple to use. There's a lot of complicated dashes that just aren't simple, and this one is. So we haven't got a phone connected to it right now. We can go back to our menus here, various controls here. You've got rain mode, standard mode, and sport mode. Those modes are only available on this dash. So when you get this tech package, traction control, same thing. The ride modes are all part of that. I think traction control as well. You can change the brightness, or you can set it to an auto brightness. Again, all of this stuff is super simple for one reason and one reason only. It is a simple touchscreen. And I get that you shouldn't take your hands off the handlebars to play with stuff, but if your alternative is to have only controls on the handlebars, then you don't want something that's so complicated. So we are going to show you the controls on the handlebars here, and I'll be honest, I believe these are self-canceling signals, so we'll talk about that in just a second here. You've got your headlight there. You can flash your high beam and turn it on or off that way. Cruise control is here. You can sort of resume or set and push it into set cruise. There's a back button and a menu button here, so you can control things without having to touch the screen. Signal lights left and right, and I believe they are self-canceling. When you press it in and press it in again, you can turn on your, or maybe hold it. Yeah, if you hold it in, you can turn on your hazard warning lights and a horn down here. The controls feel very good, and unlike typical Japanese manufacturers, so they are more rubbery. Even though they are still plastic, they feel more rubbery than a lot of the plastic stuff. So again, nice controls there. We're going to zoom out for a second, come across the handlebars here. I believe these are accessory mirrors here. You can sort of see on the bike in spots. Yeah, this one is capped off, right? Let me just show you here. This one's capped off right there where the mirror would normally be, but you do have the accessory mirrors on the end there. What I want to show you here, though, is just the little switch right here, which is the kill switch. And this, oh boy, is that your ride mode? Oh, that's controlling my dash. So let me just come through. That is cycling through the menu the same way I was using that square button on the bottom there, multi-screen button. I can do that from the trigger here. So again, you don't have to use the touchscreen. I actually really like having the touchscreen because it's simple. You can also use handlebar controls as well. And again, this to me, as of now, before I've done any editing at all, looks a little bit gray charcoal. To your screen, it's looking blue. Ignore coloring when you see stuff like this, especially on displays when you see it on a camera. It's just not accurate. Even if I try to color correct it, it's not going to be accurate. Come see it in person because it really looks fantastic in person. And if you're not a digital dash person, just don't get the tech package. Just drop down to a different package where you don't need the tech package and you can get the traditional analog dash. But I will say this is a nice looking dash and really works well. It gives you that analog look, but it also gives you a lot more functionality, which I think you're going to want in a 2025 bike. So before we talk about who this bike is for, one little fun fact. This is the second bike I've filmed today from a manufacturer that was making motorcycles in 1901. The first one I did was Royal Enfield. They have continuously made motorcycles since then, and I believe They're the only company that has continuously done so. This one also brags, Indian also brags about making or having a history going back to 1901. There was some pauses in there, but they're under Polaris ownership now. They are strong. And this is a really nice luxury, or at least premium, I would call it, cruiser brand that gives you a lot of nice features to really have something that's unique and on your own. American-made bikes, of course, that's what a lot of people want in their certain cruisers. And I will say, when we talk about who this bike is for, if you're staying away from Indian because you think it's too expensive or too premium or too whatever, it's well worth swinging by the showroom to take a look at one, because as you start taking a look at them, you can see, okay, this is or is not exactly what I want, but I can customize it right from the dealer. And you also end up with some really great features like this dash. I mean, how silly would this bike look with a big Samsung Galaxy stuck on the handlebars here? When you have navigation in the dash and when you have some of those other features in the dash and you still have that fully classic look, it's a really nice combination of stuff. And then you're also getting something that has legit horsepower and legit torque in a cruiser, but it's not designed for that peak torque. It's designed to give you that feeling throughout. So you have something that's legitimately fast, legitimately fun and quick, but also approachable and also not that expensive. You really do get a lot for the money, especially in this particular bike. So there's my quick review of the Indian Scout Bobber, the 1250, the luxury or limited, oh boy, I already got it wrong, limited tech package. So there's a lot of stuff in there, or Lux package. Anyways, I have to learn my names a little bit better. But there's my first review of this one. We're gonna have a lot more Indian bikes on here in the future. And again, my goal is to review as many 2025 bikes as I can. So if you wanna help me out with my channel, just find a couple reviews you like, watch them to the end, that really helps. And also leave a subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll have more soon. Thanks to Rally Motoplex for giving me access. We'll talk to you in the next one.